Welcome back to Alabama Tractor Pickers, and we're still chasing tractors with this 1950 Ford 8N. This is a recap of part 2 where we actually tore the tractor down and had it sandblasted, and now I'm going to go back up with it and you're going to see a major transformation in this video. So if you want to see a tractor brought back to life, watch this video until the end, and you might even learn something along the way. Thanks for watching. Today we're going to be putting the tires and the wheels back on it. That way we can get it off the jack stands and mobilize it and move it around if it gets in the way as we get it put back together. I've got all the rims painted on the rear. I've got the front wheels painted and the rear wheel centers painted. I've got all new hardware for the rear wheel centers, the rim to the center bolts. And we're going to get all of this put back together today. And we may get some new plugs put in the engine and a couple of miscellaneous things, but that's the goal. The tires are full of water. They're going to be heavy, so here we go. I've got a grinder here, a little battery grinder with a wire wheel on it, and I want to show you why. Hook your peepers in right here to the wheel hub, but I forgot to tape over that stud, so it's got a little paint on it. Not too bad, but the nut won't thread on there by hand, and I don't want to take a chance in cross threading it or take a chance in it not getting to the proper torque it needs to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this this little grinder here and we're going to clean that up before we put that wheel on. And you should always wear protection when using these. It doesn't even hurt to wear long pants and heavy shirt, because these will spit out the wires and they will stick in your clothing. Don't ask me how I know. I've used these plenty of times, and especially the cheap wheels they shoot wires. So just don't do what I'm doing now without protection, but just use caution. And any paint I mess up like there, we'll go back and touch that up with a brush once the reassembly is complete, because we will have a lot of nuts and bolts that we'll have to touch up in places, like if I missed a place or something like that. So that's not a big deal. Okay, that looks clean. We're going to let that go and get our wheels put on. Okay, so something I noticed while putting the front wheels on is the axle is a two-piece beam here, and it bolts together here with this bolt and here with another bolt. This one is actually too long because it had a bumper attached originally. I haven't decided what I want to do yet, so I'm just going to leave those like they are. We're not using the tractor, we're putting it back together. I'm going to leave it like it are for now. But this bolt here on the end and the one over here are extremely loose. This one's extremely loose. The other one is a little bit loose. So let me show you. I've got the tire on it, but it's still off the ground. So let me show you what it's doing. See? I hope the bolt isn't worn so bad that it won't tighten up. If it is, I'll just replace it. But right now we're gonna see if we can get those tight with the impact and get that one there tight. It's just a little bit loose. So let's tighten those up and make sure this front end is good to go for another 70 years. Okay, so it's evident these bolts will not tighten, either one of them at all. I can't even get them to back off and loosen. They're just so worn that they're grown on there, basically, is what that means. And it's gonna take more than my little impact to get those off. And we're gonna get the right wrench. I'll get an end wrench to fit it and bring it with me, and I'll get 2 new bolts and make sure that there's no more that need to go up here toward the other end. So we'll just replace both of these bolts. That's not a problem, and we'll do that later on. Okay, so we're almost done getting the tires mounted. I want to point something out. This rim over here is a replacement rim, aftermarket. It has the welded in loop style lugs. I'm not sure on the Fords, but I know on Internationals, the originals have actually squared lugs welded in. These are just a rounded loop style lug. Nothing wrong with them, but it is a newer aftermarket rim. Bolts up just fine. Okay, this rim over here is going to be the original style rim for the Ford 8N. This one has a welded rib, or it's formed into the rim. It's a rib right here, if you can tell. Okay, and it has your square holes, hollow holes that go through that rib for your bolts. Well, the way someone mounted this tire or mounted the other tire, either way, it's not going to allow me to get the same spacing on both rear tires. So not real happy about that, but there's not much I can do. It's not worth demounting a tire and messing up the rim and remounting the tire and all of that. It's just not worth it. This tractor's not going to be working hard, maybe pulling a spreader, maybe just riding around on it. It should be just fine, but I had inset this tire all the way inward that it will go. Okay, that's because the front axle is all the way in, as you can see. So it's one notch out from being all the way in, but it's all the way in, so your tread would essentially line up. This side, it looks like this tire is going to stick out farther, but you know, that's what we got. If I was to put it all the way in, the tread would be backwards. So we're going to get this one mounted up, and I think it'll be just fine. One more thing I want to mention is I can't stress enough about loose bolts on rear rims. Time after time, I've seen people bring a tractor to me, say, hey, I think I've got a clunk in my rear end. Something's going on. Something's wrong with this tractor. Only to find out they've got loose bolts from the center to the rim. And, you know, over time, it'll wear those bolts. You can't tighten them. You got to replace them. Sometimes the loose bolts, or a lot of times, it will egg out the hole here and wear out the rim, center, or the rim. So most likely the center, it'll egg out. So I can't stress enough to make sure your bolts are tight. Don't try to use a ratchet to tighten them. Use air, use an impact. Also, make sure the square head on the carriage bolts are fully seated into the hole and before you tighten them, because they will not tighten all the way, and they will work their way loose. So really double check, make sure they're fully seated so you get them good and tight and you don't have any issues. Restoration. Today we're going to go ahead and tackle these front axle bolts. These two outer ones, you know, they were pretty tough to get off the last time. I've got another impact wrench. This Matco has a lot more breakaway force than my DeWalt. You know, we got a fresh battery, so I'm pretty certain we'll get those off. And we'll get them swapped out with new 5/8 bolts today. So we're going to do that. I've got a lot of new parts over here, like gauges, a new resistor block. I'm going to put my radius rods back together. I may even take a pickle fork and take my tie rod ends loose, and we can get some new boots put on there and get all of that back together. Okay, so here are some of the parts that I'm going to be putting on today. Not sure if I'll get time to do all of this, but I should. I just want to go over a few things and show you what I've got. First of all, you can see that my parts look like they may have come from different places. So I represent, have the availability to get parts from SMA, which is Tisco, and I can get parts from SpareX. And then I also ordered a few things from Dennis Carpenter Ford. They represent Ford restoration parts for cars, trucks, and tractors. And so what I did, this is what I would call a budget build. It's really, I'm not cutting any corners, and I'm using quality products as far as like paint, but I'm not going over the top. Not doing a nut and bolt restoration, but I'm doing it right. Okay, so what I did is I just shopped around for every part. I have a spreadsheet of everything I'm putting on the tractor, part numbers, everything. And I just price shopped, and I got the best deal on the parts I thought I could, while somewhat keeping the quality. Like these Tisco gauges should be a lot better quality than ones that you could get through SpareX or in any other place. The overseas gauges have a white needle that is fastened on the outside where this one goes through the face. These are usually a better quality. They're not going to be the best, but they should be better than what you could normally get. And then Dennis Carpenter Ford had the original style tie rod boots, rather than just plain universal rubber ones. So I wanted to go with these for the price difference. It really didn't matter, but we're going to get these put on today. And we've got many more parts that we've ordered. I've got the OEM style fuel lines, oil pressure lines that are factory bent. Saves a lot of time and just makes for a clean look. But we're going to use this pickle fork here to get the tie rod ends loose and get those put on. So let's get to work. Okay, so I've got the tie rod, the right-hand tie rod right here at the box, simply because the boot, when I tried to put those OEM style boots on for the front, just didn't want to work. It wasn't going to allow the tie rod end to clamp down into the taper like it should, and this one had just a kind of the regular dome type rubber boot. Got to looking further. The package that the boot was in actually said, and I don't know if I caught this on the internet or not when I ordered it, but it could have been my fault, but the package said it is a rear tie rod end boot. So I took this whole tie rod assembly off, and it appears that the boot on the rear toward the steering wheel, the seat, is that type. So I'm probably going to have to get two of the universal, the regular dome type rubber boots for the front, which isn't a big deal. And I'm going to attempt to get this one off and see if this is in fact that style that I have. It is, in fact, the style that I have. It's totally worn out, but it has the metal ring on the bottom and the top. It's a little different, but it's that style. So let me get a new one. Let's clean this up, and I'll be right back. What we'll do is we'll put this on. I'll go put this back on the tractor. Looks like I got a little touching up to do on the back side when we touch the tractor up. We'll remember to get that done. So let's go put this one back on the tractor.
Feel it to be true. And when you dance, I'm in the groove. You make me move. You make me move. You got it all inside of you. Feel it to be true. And when you dance, I'm in the groove. You make me move. You make me move.
Do the other side. I'll call you when I'm ready. Okay, so we didn't get a ton of stuff done today on the 8N. A lot of small things. We fixed the front axle bolts, installed new bolts there, so everything is good and tight. Okay. Next, I took the tie rods loose. I got the front two loose, realized that I got boots for them that were incorrect for the front. I got 4 boots, but they're the rear style. You can see here I installed those. I'm going to come back and get all new cotter pins, all 4 sides. Those are the rear style. I'm going to get 2 front style boots, get those put on. I went ahead and broke both of those loose with a pickle fork. Okay. Got this boot installed. Got the ignition switch installed. The original on-off style ignition switch goes there. My light switch, I was going to install it, but realized that someone has reamed out the hole just slightly. It's not a huge deal, but what we'll do is I'll get another nut. That way I'll have a backer nut, and then I'll get a nut for the front, and then I'll get 2 flat washers, and that should clean that up. And once we get it all back together and touch up all the little areas, it should look okay. I got my ammeter and my oil pressure gauge installed. I got my steering column grommet installed. That was a bear. It really fought me, but we got it in. The choke rod, if you're wondering, it goes through there, and it's a linkage rod. Okay, I was going to install the shift grommet, but realized the knob's got to come off. I may just need to get a pipe wrench to try to get that off. It's on there pretty good. I'm sure it's never been off since it was new. The original boot, or grommet you would call it, it was hard as a rock, and it fought me coming off there too, so I'm sure it was original. Ran out of time, but I was going to get the radius rods put back on and packed with grease, but that won't take very long. We can do that the next time. So walking around the tractor, that's about all we did today, but we did make some headway, and now it's just all reassembly. I still need to adjust the valves. I've got one valve cover gasket, need to order a second one. So once I do that, we'll get those adjusted, everything put back on, the manifold put back on, and the carburetor, and we can go on up with it. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching.